Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share yet another video about Sony's full-frame mirrorless cameras. Now, I've got the A9 Mark II here, and if you've been following my coverage, you already know that I think this is easily the best full-frame mirrorless camera ever made. I mean, 20 frames per second, outperforms the original A9. The acquisition on the autofocus is fantastic. Real-time tracking, amazing. Everything about this camera is truly best in class, unmatched by anything else out there, except for, of course, the previous generation, which is fantastic, but not as good as this more modern version of the A9. So if you're asking yourself why I have an A7R IV here, it's quite simple. In my previous update about the A9 Mark II, I said this would likely be my next camera. And at $4,500, I think it's worth every penny. However, I also mentioned that the A7R IV had recently been on sale for just an amazing price, and I didn't think at the time I could take advantage of it, but I was actually able to get this at a steep discount. And frankly, it's one of those things where if you get an opportunity to move on from previous gear in place of something that is better, and I do see the A7R IV as an upgrade from my Mark III, here it is. So I've already unboxed, well, I've already reviewed this, unboxed it, I've done everything, but it's back. And that's why I wanted to share this with all of you, because just a week ago or whatever it was when I put up the A9 Mark II video, I said, you know, as much as I like the A7R IV, because this is more of the all-around, more versatile camera over the A9 II, I wouldn't consider it, right? Unless I got it at that price point. And well, I got it at that price point. So you've seen all of this already. Let's just get the camera out of there because I'm excited to now finally have this officially on hand and become my daily driver here in the studio, as well as, of course, enjoying this thing outdoors, because the A7R IV, in my review, I stated this does give you the best of both worlds. You have a modern A7R, at least the most, 61 megapixels, no overheating or video recording problems whatsoever. Really best in class overall capability other than that speed of the A9 Mark II. And we do have the best EVF on the market, which matters to me. I wear glasses. I rely on EVFs. I mean, when I can use an LCD screen, great. But when I can't, that EVF is going to be my go-to every single time. And then the improved button layout. I mean, I've gone over all this in my full review. It's important, you know, when you're talking about traveling and being in different environments, if you're wearing gloves, you're going to appreciate these more defined, robust buttons. Weather sealing has been improved. All the things I already went over in my full review. So I don't really need to show you anything in the box, but I thought it would be interesting for some of you out there that follow my coverage to see that usually, you know, I go with these cameras at launch if I find them compelling enough, but the pricing on this was just too good. And just to put these side by side, because now I have the opportunity, something I didn't think I would end up having simply because, you know, my loaner came a while ago and has long been, you know, shipped back. But now we have both cameras side by side, and you better believe I'm going to have an even more in-depth look at the A9 since I can actually go out with these side by side. I still have some time left with my A9 Mark II loaner from Sony, so I will be able to put these through the paces. But again, as I mentioned, you can instantly see it's not a huge difference, but the fact that the A9 in my right hand just has more functionality on the fly at the top of the body, again, speaks to who they are targeting. And that's not to say the A7R IV isn't a professional grade camera. I mean, DP Review just named it the best landscape camera on the market, and that's because its sensor really is that good in spite of still being full frame and not medium format. The 61 megapixels is fantastic. Yes, there's a little bit more noise, you know, depending on lighting than the A7R III that I did already sell. I mean, as quickly as I could purchase this at the price, you better believe I turned over the A7R III. We are in that holiday season, so it was something where I didn't really have to think about it too long. Would I have preferred to get the A9 II? Of course I would have preferred that, because even if I was only left with my old A7R II, which I still have and I don't plan on giving up, that would have been enough on the resolution side to then be complemented by the A9 II. However, that wasn't the way things panned out, and now I've got the A7R IV permanently in my home, and I'm excited. I did not think I was going to pick up on this generation. I thought it would be a pass for me merely because it was just something where I didn't feel it was justified at its price point. But at the price that I was able to get this, it is beyond worth it in my mind. So hopefully I get a good unit, nothing defective here. I'll get to test it, more importantly, as I said, directly against the A9 II, specifically with the G-Series 200 to 600 lens that I've been reviewing. And that's going to be interesting because remember, the A7R IV does have that APS-C crop mode where you net 26 megapixels with that 1.5 times crop factor. So that means my 100 to 400 G Master, it does reach a 600 millimeter equivalent in crop mode. So I will also be able to pit 26 megapixel APS-C shots out of this with the 100 to 400 G Master against the 200 to 600 images, which of course will be better, but it's going to give me a real taste not only of the autofocus performance difference, which is quite a bit, 10 versus 20 frames, but more importantly, what those lenses respectively, how different the experience is. And of course, I'll be shooting the 200 to 600 on here as well. I've already shot the 100 to 400 on both of these cameras. So it's just exciting. It gives me another layer of depth to dive into in the latest generation of full frame cameras from Sony. And I'm excited because these are both great cameras. I've always been more prone to the R series because it's the best of both worlds. Again, if I had the opportunity to get the A9 Mark II at a significant discount like I did with the R4, you better believe I would be selling gear to buy it. But that's not the case for right now. The R4 is the new king in-house, at least. That doesn't mean, of course, it's going to outperform this camera, but its cropping capability with all of that additional information, 61 versus the 24 megapixels here, it's going to be a benefit to me when I do try to take this puppy into telephoto world. Of course, from a landscape perspective, we already know how good the a7R IV is, best in class. I mean, there's really nothing that stands up to it. And I'm going to really enjoy the real-time tracking on the video side. That's something I did not have in my arsenal of personal cameras right now because the a7R III did not have that. A7R II, of course, does not have that. The a6500 does not have that. A63 doesn't, 100 doesn't have that. And I don't own the RX107. You know, that is something I got on loan for review. I have the Mark VI. So this is going to be my first camera in the stable permanently here that does have real-time tracking for video. So the eye autofocus, all of those things, the animal eye autofocus is going to be great for the pup to have. He's still growing, but he's still a puppy. He's only at now about 3 months. So going to get some great shots of him. Not that I wasn't already with what I had, but it will only be made better because the only other camera I had, the RX10, we know Mark IV recently got a firmware update that I covered that also added eye and animal eye autofocus. But anyway, excited to have this in tow, and I will also be taking a look at the new shotgun mic designed specifically for this camera, which I should be getting a loaner from Sony shortly. So I'm going to be very interested to see what the quality will be like with the a7R IV. I may also test it on the A9 Mark II, but I'm more interested in the pairing here. After all, this was the camera it was designed for, but I would imagine the A9 Mark II has the same digital capability. No cameras before the a7R IV, to my knowledge, could leverage the pure digital audio signal coming from that new shotgun mic. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.